when you use an F-bomb, +2 when you forcefully.
This is the perfect time to start recording too.
It's the best. So let's, now that I've solved my personal problems of like recording and all of that, which is just absolutely fantastic, which means I'm probably going to be recording a preamble for the video where I'm going to be like, hi, my name is Randy and I don't know how to use technology despite, working in the tech field. And I would like to tell you all of the things that you missed in the recording that I did not record. Anyway, but we're at the fun and exciting stuff, which is we're talking about world building right now. We're talking about like the city that we're in or the neighborhood of the city. And I want to know, like, I want you to contribute ideas to the city. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I think that at least one of the neighborhoods is definitely like one of those classic northeastern historical neighborhoods where everybody's super protective of weird random aspects of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sort of like a building that really should have been torn down decades ago is still beloved and half worshipped. Yeah, NIMBY Town. But like everything has plaques,
Lots of historical preservation.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Maggie?
So, if anyone comes up with a character who is from the other side of the tracks, that implies the existence of tracks. Steam engines?
So let's talk about that. First of all, I have no problem with adding like steam engines to the world. That's fine. But do we want it to be like, we can have it be steam engines, which lends a little bit of a steampunk aesthetic. Do we want it to be like in the world of Emberrain where like trains are run on like elementals that are trapped inside, or is it, so we can have like, we've got like a little bit more steampunky, we've got a little bit more Emberrain-y, or we can just be like they are like in the movie The Labyrinth, like the goblins that are running the big drill that are all like just kind of like, just riding the bicycle, getting the drill to move. Maybe instead of it being steam powered, maybe it's like goblin powered. Where like, the goblins are vital to the infrastructure of the city. And maybe that's part of it too. Like, I'm just thinking of different themes that we can use for that. Maggie, this was your idea. What feels good to you?
Now you've got me going down the road of goblin unions. So, and that is something that kids might go over the head of fantasy kids, but
well, I mean, so
love that idea though.
I tell you what, why don't we'll do goblin unions, and there are, they are responsible for like, a lot of the infrastructure of the city, including, we'll assume like people powered or animal powered, like conveyances that run on tracks.
I'm now picturing like God, I'm blanking on what they're called, but the carts that are pulled by people, except they're all pulled by goblins.
Rickshaws.
Yeah, rickshaws, but just goblin rickshaws everywhere in the city.
Well, here's the thing. So I love rickshaws. I actually had a campaign where like there were no horses and everything was pulled by like rickshaw. But goblins, I don't think are going to be big enough or strong enough to pull like rickshaws. And so,
well, that's why I thought it was a funny idea. But I think it also does, though, potentially lead us down towards the realm of potentially there being racial issues in the world. So I think that's a good reason to scrap it too. But
well, the question is whether or not this is. Why don't we do rickshaw bicycles? That gives greater leverage, and then we can have a diversity of peoples pulling, like, doing the rickshaws. Rickshaws by bicycle.
It could be like those tandem bike things.
Sounds amazing.
We could do it too, just to earn some extra cash.
I imagine that my character Joth Emberrain is like just constantly like doing drive-by pranks on his bicycle, where he's just like, oh yeah, well, here's a light show in your yard at 6 a.m. Rude awakening. I love him.
Well, the thing that I like about the path that we've taken so far is that, like, we've not had to say that there are bicycles, but now we have just justified bicycles 100% without having to declare it.
But now we're kids on bikes, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
Yes, definitely.
We're now changing what this is. We're going to use a different system.
If one of us is not a bike messenger kid, I'm going to be very upset.
I was actually thinking about potential. Now that people are talking about this, I'm thinking about going with that. And actually, as a part of that, I was going to suggest that there's like some sort of like stage play that's very popular that people do, or maybe even some sort of like fantasy version of TV or something about a character named MageGyver. And that my character really tries to sort of like emulate themselves off of, and that they try to become the best at just taking random things, smushing them together, and creating something new. And I think that might be. I'm thinking kind of like the way that, like, you know, the orcs and like Warcraft kind of work, in which they just believe that something works and then it works. I'm thinking something kind of like along those lines. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. One of the reasons why the goblins are so heavily involved in the infrastructure is that they just kind of came up with these grand ideas, and somehow like the magic of the world just made it happen and made it work.
Excellent. I like that. Yeah. And that ties into a little bit of the theme today, which is like the name of today's adventure is the Journal of Chester Cumberbatch. It can be this stage play about MageGyver, is based loosely on the life of Chester Crumbletorch. So,
which is it? Crumbletorch or Cumberbatch?
Crumbletorch. I'm sorry. I guess immediately thought about good old Bumper Snatch. So, yeah. All right. So, let's see. I think everybody's contributed something to the world. We've got a historical neighborhood, which is centered around historic preservation. We have goblins who are unionized. I mean, there are unions, and the unions are more than just goblins, but goblins are generally like a majority of it in the city, running the infrastructure. Just so everybody knows, the goblin unions, they are powerful unions within the city. Like they wield power equivalent to the guilds in the city, meaning that like the goblins, if anything, are probably better situated than some guilds are. So while the goblins are maybe taking care of infrastructure, which some people maybe don't want to care about as much, they're really well taken care of. So many of them are very well paid. So I don't want to, I mention this because I want to make it a little bit interesting. I also don't want goblins to be seen as second-class citizens. And that's okay. Rickshaws are, there are lots of like bicycle kind of rickshaws. I don't know if it's still a rickshaw, if it's a bicycle, but I'm going to use the term rickshaw. And lots of different peoples like use them to get around the city. And there is a stage play about MageGyver. What is the stage play name? It could just be MageGyver, but maybe there's a colon.
I'm pulling a blank. Does anybody want to contribute?
I really like the idea of there being a colon and something after it, but I'm also right now.
I know exactly what it is. MageGyver. I memorized explosive runes today.
Yes. Oh, maybe, yeah, there's a whole series of plays, and each time what comes after the colon changes. That's just like the most recent iteration.
Yes, that is the story of how MageGyver took out the bad guy using a piece of post, mailed him an explosive runes letter via the post office. And what did the letter say? I memorized explosive runes today.
Which implies the existence of a well-maintained postal service.
Indeed it does, and I'm 100% on board for that.
And something tells me the Postal Service also proceeded to then censor this this particular play precisely because of the fact that it encouraged people to use the post office for violence.
Well, they did have to spend more money on detect magic on the post, so they had to hire more like low-level wizards to be able to kind of like, you know, detect whether like magic is being used. So
what about education? Like, since we're, you know, I'm thinking about like an elementary school or something like that, or I don't know how old our characters are. We're supposed to be kids, and of course, that's where most of Joth Emberrain's shenanigans are going to take place. What is the school system like?
So first, to answer your implied question, my thought is that you are pre-teenage angst in age. So you could be 14 or 15, but you haven't hit angsty yet. You could be like a tween. You could be like 9. I think that like somewhere in that kind of range fits. Now, because I'm talking about characters, I'm going to go into that a little bit, and I'll come back around to your education. One thing that I do want to remind you all of is that we are playing Fate Accelerated, and that means that our defaults are I'm going to play a person. So I'll be a tiefling, a dark elf, a human, a dwarf, an elf. All of those perfectly valid choices, nothing wrong with them. If you are all humanoid, that is great. However, this is Fate Accelerated. We have a lot more options available to us. If someone wants to be a talking house cat, that is something that exists as well. If you want to be some kind of animated candlestick with a French accent, I will make you sing, but you could do that if you want to. This is in the realm of possibility as well. I mentioned this just so that, like, as you're thinking, you start to realize that you can go super weird. I will say the weirdest character I ever played was I was living Tetris blocks in Fate, and that was a lot of fun. Okay, Maggie, you've got a question?
Yes. What if you were somebody's imaginary friend?
That I mean, we can talk about it. I'm on board for that.
Just a thought that occurred to me. No real plans towards that avenue. Just.
I mean, I think it really fits with the genre of what we're exploring today.
Just because I'm a sucker for people who don't understand themselves, I think it would be hilarious if you thought you were someone's imaginary friend.
Oh no.
But maybe you're like a ghost or something else where only some people can see you.
Maybe like a fey spirit, you know, something like that. It was like I think I'm invisible to everyone around me.
And here's the thing. You can start out saying I'm so-and-so's imaginary best friend. And as we go through the game, we can start exploring what does that mean? Like, we don't have to define up front that like this is a fey spirit, this is a elemental or a ghost or a demon or a hoax. We can explore that space as time goes on and develop that and kind of surprise ourselves as we go through the story. All right, so I want to come back to Dylan Greene's question about, hey, what's the education system? My default that I'm considering is like the United States education system. You know, kind of like middle school sounds about right. And middle school can encompass whatever grades we need to for your characters. But I'm also happy to deviate from that if we want to change expectations.
I think that's a good model. It's familiar, and we just kind of have to like flavor it for fantasy, but I think it's easy just as a transfer, especially because we can introduce the dynamics where again I desperately want that Principal Skinner stand-in, who's always got their eye on me, and that'll be fun.
How do we feel about it being an inner city school? Like a little bit rougher, a little bit like rough and tumble.
So in other words, like we would be going to, like, let's say the inner city school, and then maybe there's also some other ones like a prep school or something like that, so that there's like that social dynamic in addition to that. That sounds good. And it also makes sense that the prep school would be like in NIMBY Town.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? All right, cool. So I feel like we've got a good, like, do we all feel like we have a good feeling on like the world and any outstanding questions? All right, great. So the next thing on my list, I want to create some information about Chester Crumbletorch. Chester Crumbletorch is the baseline that I have for it is an adventurer who went missing like several decades ago. And Crumbletorch is kind of like almost like a folk hero to kids. He was searching for a wish. And like if you think of like a combination of like Indiana Jones's dad in the third movie of the final movie of the Indiana Jones series, mixed with a little bit of apparently MacGyver or MageGyver, really like friendly with the kids, really, was maybe a retired adventurer that was, had a good relationship with students, sort of like how Doc had a good relationship with Marty McFly in the Back to the Future movies, but went missing like 20 years ago, but like there are like all of these different like rumors and everything around Chester Crumbletorch, but he's still like a heroic kind of vision. What do the students like say or quote, know about Chester Crumbletorch?
He once beat this huge sphinx at a game of riddles. It was huge, you guys, and it was so smart.
I love that so much. Beat a sphinx at riddles.
I'm pretty basic. What can I say?
There's nothing basic about that. That's pretty clever.
I'm thinking a lot of the sort of like MageGyver and stories basically are coming from a time when this character was heavily involved in like basically kind of like an agent for a kingdom at some point. Not like the one that we're in, but like in some far off lands, just in order to make it even more exotic and unusual for like the storytelling purposes. Whether that's true or not, obviously, I don't know, but
Okay. Agent. He was an agent for a far off kingdom. That is also really good. Okay.
I'm going to preface mine with just something that I'm tossing around as a thought for my character, which is that he's they're a not very bright conspiracy theorist. So he's secretly funded by the goblins as a way of distracting us from actual problems in the city.
Oh, so all of these rumors are kind of a distraction or a cover story?
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
He's just a paid actor. That's all he is.
Paid actor by the goblins who then went missing because he suddenly decided not to be a paid actor anymore. Or like,
It all makes sense now.
Yes. All right. Let's see. Dylan Greene, what do you want to contribute to Crumbletorch?
I was taking a bio break just briefly. Just give me a little bit of a refresher.
Sure. So Chester Crumbletorch went missing about 20 years ago. He was a retired adventurer who was searching for a wish. Not like searching for a way to get a wish. He's kind of like, if you think in terms of like MageGyver meets Indiana Jones's dad, played by Sean Connery in the final Indiana Jones installment. Then let's see. He also he's kind of like almost like a mythological figure that most like students and kids like really like, because he was like really good with kids. Like he was like how Doc had a good relationship with Marty McFly in Back to the Future. That's like, you know, this is Shia LaBeouf erasure on purpose. I mean, his name was Mud for a reason. I know it was Mutt, but I mean, it was Mud. Anyway, so far we've declared about Crumbletorch. Rumors have it that he beat a Sphinx at riddles. He was an agent for a far off kingdom, which added to like the mystery of Chester Crumbletorch. And rumors are he was secretly funded by the goblins as a paid actor. And part of the reasons why he disappeared is maybe like related to like he decided not to be a paid actor anymore, or he was taken out. Like, who knows? There's some conspiracy surrounding the disappearance of Chester Crumbletorch.
I guess we could do we could just add on another rumor that like he is actually still in town somewhere, secretly manipulating things from right underneath our noses. That's what I'm thinking.
Like he went undercover.
He went undercover and is still alive.
Secretly in town, undercover. All right. I like this. I think we've developed Chester Crumbletorch a little bit, or at least the rumors of Chester Crumbletorch. All right, great. Now that we have developed the world a little bit and answered some questions about Chester Crumbletorch, I think it's time for us to do some character creation. So, in Foundry, you've got your character sheets. I'm going to ask you to do a couple of different things for me. The first thing is coming up with aspects for your character. I'm going to ask that you come up with 3 aspects for your character. Now, you'll see on your character sheet that there are room for 5. The 3 that I'm asking for are enough for us to get started. The other 2 can be left blank, and we can do they can be left blank, or if you have ideas, you can fill in. If they are left blank, you can create aspects in play. I personally like to leave like space in my character sheet, so that while I'm playing, like I will kind of discover more about the character that I didn't realize. And that gives me room to add a couple of aspects to flesh out the character. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. And if they remain blank at the end of the session, that's also okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. The same is going to be true for your approaches. And I want to talk through what approaches are and what that means and how they differ from skills. And then we'll lean into writing your aspects and picking out your approaches. So in a lot of tabletop role-playing games, you make use of skills, and skills are usually pretty self-evident. Like if you are trying to deceive someone, if you are trying to notice something, if you are trying to pick a lock, if you are trying to be stealthy, if you are trying to perceive, if you are trying to recall some knowledge of arcane bits or religious bits, those skills are usually pretty self-evident. The way that Fate Accelerated works is we use approaches, which is how you are approaching a problem, which sounds maybe not as good as skills, but I personally think in some ways it's a little bit better because it allows you to kind of flavor your character a little bit more. And so those approaches are going to look different based on the character. A character who is beefy and strong is going to approach forceful different than a character who is smart and into demolitions versus a character who is very charismatic and has an overwhelming personality. All 3 of those kinds of characters can use the forceful approach, but they're using them differently. The character who is beefy and strong is probably going to be forcefully punching a lot of people. The character who knows demolitions is probably going to be forceful in setting off explosives. And the character who is charismatic with an overwhelming personality is going to be forceful in conversation. Okay. And so you may ask yourself, well, how do I know if I can do a thing? Like, I want to be able to pick a lock. Can my character pick a lock? In the story that we're telling, I mean, you get to decide yes or no if your character can pick a lock. And usually you can lean on your aspects. You can ask yourself, would my character actually be able to do this? And so you have to think about what you would do. Now, picking a lock is not the only way to get past a door. And you can use any of these approaches to get past a door. You can use flashy to pretend like you belong and have somebody and have like a tour guide take you into the room. You can use forceful to knock the door down. You can use sneaky to pick the lock. You can use, careful to time it after somebody else goes in to go in after them. There's lots of different ways to approach that using those approaches. And as we play the game, we're going to explore that space. One of the, to know which approach to use whenever you've got a particular skill check, one of the best things to do is ask yourself, what would be the problem if I failed? Like if I tried to knock this door down, what would the problem be? Well, the problem would be like maybe you hurt yourself because you were like tried to pound your shoulder into the door. I mean, we've all seen TV shows where somebody's hurt themselves trying to knock down a door. And so like that can help provide clarifying answers for approaches. During the game, you're going to be asked like, I'm going to ask questions like, does your character know this thing? And you get to determine often like the yes or no to that. Like I don't track languages. I don't like track equipment. It's assumed that you're going to have all of the things that would be typical for your character. And like, as long as you're reasonable about it, that's going to be fine. Like having a writing implement, having paper, having like, hairpins to provide as lockpicks. Those are all very reasonable. You having 1,000 gold piece diamond for resurrection, probably not likely because you're all children. However, if one of you is from the hoity-toity neighborhood, that becomes more likely that you could possibly have one. So let's go back to aspects that you have to write. I have 3 aspects listed. There's high concept, there's trouble, and there's wish. Okay. Your high concept is, basically your summary of who your character is. Okay. And that is like if you are a paladin of bread and wine, like that's a pretty good high concept. Like you're a paladin, you celebrate like bread and wine and the gods that are related to that. And that kind of covers that. If you are a dark elf prankster, I'm looking at you, Dylan. That's a really easy high concept. Generally aspects can be used for or against you. Don't worry so much about needing to kind of like think about the for or against. We just want to come up with some aspects and get to play. And we'll refine them if we need to refine wording, but the intent behind an aspect is more important than the specific wording. Like dark elf trickster, like if we suddenly have like there are 3 different great families of dark elf, is it important that Dylan mark what family of dark elf he's part of? No, because we know he's part of this family. We don't have to change the thing. We're all adults and very reasonable. There are not going to be any gotchas in this game, except for me as a GM getting you, but not like that kind of gotcha. Anyway, your trouble aspect is the thing that like plagues you and causes problems. Okay. Like for instance, my go-to example of paladin of bread and wine, like the trouble concept would be vain. Okay. Because that paladin is particularly vain, believes he is the center of attention, and acts and behaves that way, and it generates a lot of problems for him. It could also be something a little bit more like, if you wanted to be a little bit more like Tiny Tim, you could be like, you could have a bad leg. You could have a bad home life. You could have picked on by bullies. You could have like whatever is like the center of trouble in your life is what that trouble aspect is for. And the last one, because it's not actually in the book, the third aspect I've listed as wish aspect. As you can probably guess, because I said that Chester Crumbletorch was looking for a wish, that's going to tie into like how this story goes. Each of your characters has like a wish that they want to have happen, and this can be big or small. It could be like, I wish my mother would like find like, or I wish my father wouldn't be sick. I wish that I could be big and strong instead of stringy and nerdy. I I wish that I was popular. I like, it doesn't have to be problematic, but it's like part of your character, and it ties into and tells us a little bit about your character too. And that may or may not tie into the second part of our the second session of our game, because I'm Bob's gun. I'm mentioning wishes. Like, I would imagine there's probably going to be that at the end. So those are the aspects. I'm going to put into the chat the numbers for the aspects, or for the approaches. You get a 3, 2 2s, 2 1s, and a 0 to assign. And you can assign all of them now, or you can assign a couple of them now, or you can assign none of them until we start play. Whatever you choose to do is fine. And I'm also, I'm pretty flexible about changing things up as you're discovering your character. So if you give something a +3 and you start to realize that maybe another one should be a +3, we can talk about that as we play. So I'm going to go ahead and quiet up and let you guys rate some aspects. And if you have questions, ask. Is anyone ready to share their aspects?
I'm going to need another minute.
That's okay. You go. Listen, you keep working. We're going to let other Dylan share his. But if you could mute, because you have a very loud keyboard.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I love loud keyboards. So, all right. Dylan Greene, tell us about the aspects for your character.
All right. So Joth Emberrain here. His high concept is that he is a dark elf prankster, and his trouble is, I prank before I think. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right. Sorry, I thought you were about to say something.
No.
Wish aspect. Someday I'll prank the whole town. The other aspect is Principal Smudgeons always got their eyes on me, and somehow I always have an accomplice. It's to give Joth his own version of Millhouse, for sure.
All right. So looking at this, Dark Elf Prankster is really good. I prank before I think. One of the things, my thought on that is that like you don't think about the consequences.
Yes.
Of it. So
like I wanted to communicate that like Joth is very impulsive. That
yes,
he will be like, oh, okay, but I think wording it that way as well was important. I didn't just want to write impulsive. So
yeah, no. I think that's great. We understand the thinking behind it. Tell me more someday about the wish aspect. Someday I'll prank the whole town. Why does your character want to prank the whole town?
I really like the idea of him kind of just wanting to have. I'm flashing back to the episode where Bart Simpson saws the head off of Jebediah Springfield, and just the idea that like he wants to make the big prank that gets the attention of everyone in the town. as to his reasons why, it is definitely like, I would imagine, have we have more time, it would go into like just specific background of probably him being invisible in his home life. That's what I would imagine would be a good motivator.
So you also have Principal Smidgen. Smudgen. Always got their eyes on me. All right. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then somehow I always have an accomplice. So one of the things that I'll think with this, like I know you said that one of your things behind that one is to have like a Millhouse to blame. We have 2 sessions, and I don't know that we're going to have a good time to flesh out an NPC like a Millhouse for you. I think that if you, instead of somehow I have an accomplice, saying I always have someone to blame, or good at laying the blame on others, or even leaving it blank, I would ask you to consider.
So when we were talking about Joth possibly being like with the backstory of like him being invisible at home, I actually think that would be, because I figured that like if we can develop this accomplice, this Millhouse character, fine, but like I figured that might have been up in the air. But I think I hate being invisible. Like,
okay, I like
that would be one. Like it that would create some good, interesting opportunities for like him being like rendered invisible by like authority or something like that, and then him being like, okay, you want to do that? Well, now I'm going to make sparklers appear out of my hands.
Okay, great. All right, cool. Who else would like to share the aspects for their character? All right, Maggie, you're it.
Hi. So currently for high concept, I am working with plucky kid sister or sidekick to so and so. Kind of wanted to build in sort of like maybe a knowing of the other person. I'm not certain. Totally up to discussion. The trouble being, don't leave me behind. So following others to certain doom is on the table. As well as the wish. I wish I could be best friends with everyone.
That's very sweet.
And I do have like, I had this sort of image of like, oh, hang on, wait, I've got just a thing in my satchel, and like coming out with like a character band-aid or like a piece of candy and just being like, here.
I think that is great. All right. And after we find out about the other 2, we can figure out who you are the who you are the sister sidekick to. All right, cool. Who would like to share theirs next? Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I did unmute. Yeah, so I have this thought of my character kind of being, you mentioned before, we're kind of going to be in some sort of inner city school kind of thing. So I've got this idea of, I'm the kid that actually shouldn't be here, but I couldn't make it in the nice school for whatever reason. I have my thoughts on that, which kind of are outlined in the other ones. So my trouble, everything is a conspiracy. So like one of those kids that's it's a very overactive imagination, very smart, but can't figure out where their imagination ends, kind of thing. They're just always imagining that there's more to everything than there probably is. And gets caught up in their own fantasies. So, which kind of leads to the wish, which is, why does nobody believe me? I.e., I just want people to believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also have these other 2 thoughts. One of them, first of all those are very, very interrelated with like kind of some other aspect to the character. So I had this thought of like recovering from some sort of magical flu. I may or may not be in the midst of an Owl House rewatch where I just passed the fire flu episode.
I think that's great. I think I think it's perfect.
Okay.
So I like this. Couldn't make it in the nice school. Would we say that maybe your parents are sending you here to like teach you how to appreciate or behave, or as punishment for like behaviors in the good school, or like why couldn't you hack it in the good school, and why are you here?
I think I probably couldn't hack it in the good school because they didn't want to be associated with somebody that kept making up fantasies. So I think it's probably not my parents' decision. I would hope I'd have better parents than I'll punish you by putting you in a bad school.
Okay, so that's fine. So you have good parents, and the for whatever reason the hoity-toity community, like the school like board, decided that like we just like this kid doesn't fit. We're ejecting them, and that took you to our wizarding school. Well, school. All right. I like it. Very good. Very good. Hessan, do you want to share yours?
Yeah, sure. I'm currently operating under the idea that my character is one of those goblins named Bloz. I'm kind of tying into that sort of, for the high concept, this sort of like apprentice of MageGyver. I've dived way too deep into this. Like I have the playbills and everything. So I think also tying into part of that is just that I tried to do a lot of the stuff, like, you know, the tinkering and the randomly throwing stuff together, and it just works. For the trouble, I'm thinking older sister is the perfect child that everybody knows. So I'm thinking that this ties in both in the idea that like, oh, everybody knows the family, everybody knows my sister. So, and therefore is looking at Bloz through that sort of lens of why aren't you more like your sister, sort of a thing. So I'm thinking this is a bit, creates an antagonistic relationship, and also a series of insecurities for Bloz. The sort of wish was, I wish I could solve a great problem for the city. Because again, MageGyver, right? But also, the one I'm in the middle of typing right now is that I'm thinking my family is like a set of organizers. Maybe not necessarily like associated with the unions directly, but some sort of social organizer of some sort. Okay. And that because of that there's that, again, more expectations of that you're supposed to behave in certain ways and stuff like that. And again, my character's kind of out in a bit in fantasy land. So it makes it difficult for Bloz.
Awesome. I like that. So I have something for you and Maggie to consider. Just because I'm trying to bring together and lower the number of like NPCs, just for time. What if Hassan's older sister, who is the perfect child that everyone knows, is Maggie's character? And we really play with this idea of like, okay, you view it like everybody knows my sister, and like, you know, she's, you know, kind of like she's popular, and Hessan has his own issues with that. Whereas Maggie, you're the older sister to Hassan's character, but you're also in some ways like their sidekick, because they're always off doing this MageGyver stuff, and like you want to be part of it, but like you're always kind of like being left behind. And so like you could potentially fill those roles for each other. If that feels wrong, say no, and that's okay. But I see a way to tie you together through that.
I certainly have no issue with it if Hessan is open to it.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds interesting.
I'm actually kind of reimagining, because I was, not to get too far ahead, I was considering a stunt with I have something in my satchel for that. And maybe it could sort of be like oh wait, no, don't, like, take care of yourself. Oh, don't worry, I'm here to help. That sort of thing. Like trying to bridge that connection with Hessan's character.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of my stunt would be something like, again, sort of like taking random things and throwing them together in order to create a tool that would solve solve an active problem. So basically, your satchel is going to be my toolkit.
Oh no, are we going to discover that we have more connection than we thought we originally did by the end of the story? Oh no! So good.
That's why I say leave some aspect spaces open. But anyway, all right, great. So that explains the relationship between Hessan's character and Maggie's character, which is good. Let's see. We've got the Dark Elf Prankster. And so how do we feel like Dylan and Dylan? How do we feel about your characters having a relationship with each other? I mentioned this because like we have a prankster who is going to be kind of a little bit more of an outsider troublemaker, and we've got a conspiracy theorist. It feels like in the halls of school, perhaps you would be good friends.
I think that, or I've got one suggestion, which other Dylan, you can tell me what your thoughts are. You prank a lot. I'm probably very easily not just pranked, but also like I imagine that maybe you pranked me in like believing stuff, and now I'm just not accepting that you don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
You're my one friend, but you're not actually really.
Yeah, where like I like there's a little bit of like sort of I would describe it as like a little bit of a manipulation of like you're a useful rube on occasions. No doubt I still consider you a friend, but I'm also not above being like I'm going to mess with you a little bit. Like that is kind of the Bart Simpson Milhouse dynamic there.
All right. So we've got a pair and a pair, and we need to bring it all together. What if, and this doesn't have to be an aspect or anything, but what if you're all in the Crumbletorch Club? Or like maybe it's because of popular culture, it's the MageGyvers Club. And that kind of like brings you all together. I mean, it's pretty obvious why Hessan's character would be there. Maggie, you would be there because of your brother. Dylan, you're a prankster, so like you're the one on the outside. Dylan, you're a conspiracy theorist, and that ties into Crumbletorch with some of your thoughts on that.
I'm there to convince everybody of the truth.
Perfect.
No.
Wake up, sheeple.
Oh, Principal Smudgeon assigned you to the club.
Yes.
So you are reluctantly a member of the club. You've been assigned to chess club as punishment.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Which one of us was that?
That was my character.
Yeah.
Joth Emberrain. He has been assigned as punishment, and soon enough he will figure out that there is something in it for him. And yeah,
it looks like we all have names for our characters now too, which is great.
Yes.
Do we want to announce the names?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So my character is going to be Solace Augustus Coddleton.
Solace Augustus Coddleton. All right.
I already mentioned earlier, but I'm thinking Bloz. Maggie, if we want to do a surname or a patronym or something, feel free to just suggest something.
I think that could be really fun to come up with something, maybe for a big reveal in episode 2 or after break.
Yeah, I gave myself a last name because I figured if I'm from the nicer side of town, I probably have a nice family that folks may or may not know.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, and I'm Tilly. Is that short for anything? No. Just Tilly.
Good. I tell you what, why don't each of us tell everybody what your highest approach is so that we can get an idea of what you're going to be doing. Greene.
Clever.
All right. Maggie.
Careful.
Hessan.
I had set mine as clever as well.
Nothing wrong with that. And Dylan.
I haven't yet, but I was kind of waiting for folks. I'm probably going to do either flashy or forceful.
And you can hold that until play if you want to. So, all right. We have set up our world. We have set up rumors of Chester Crumbletorch and how that impacts us. We have created our characters and how they are all interrelated inside. I want us all to come up with one more thing, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then we will begin playing. What is the name of the school that you all go to, and what is its mascot?
Westgate Middle.
Westgate Middle.
Westgate Wyverns.
Oh my gosh.
Westgate Middle, and you said the Wyvern?
Yes.
So you are the
Is there like an ongoing debate within the school, like on how to pronounce it?
Wyverns, Wyverns, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, everybody's missing the fact that it's the Wyvern because obviously they want us to ask why.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the reason.
What are the school colors? Just so I can picture this logo better for like our random sports teams.
I think it's got to be green for the Wyvern, and I think it's either red for flame coming out of the Wyvern's mouth, which I don't think they breathe fire, but like it's a mascot. Or it's green and gold because green and gold is a very common athletic color pairing.
Mm.
I think green and gold, like the gold feels a little too foofy. I think I would push for red because not only is it red for fire, but also red to cover up the blood that might get spilled during the magical sporting events, and it's just kind of like a morale booster.
We have our school, the Westgate Middle, represented by the Westgate Wyverns or Wyverns, whatever, like pick your poison. I'm going to keep going back and forth on it. I'm not good at pronouncing things. That is one of my big weaknesses. What's that?
Wyvern.
Oh my God. It's going to be terrible. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a 13-minute break. We will come back right on the hour, which is 2:00 Eastern, or whatever your local time is. And so stretch your legs, wear what Wyverns. I would imagine that is the shirt that your character is going to wear. So, all right, stretch your legs, get something to drink, have a bio. See you back here shortly. Okay, thank you everyone, and welcome to the Journal of Chester Cumberbatch. This is a learn to play Fate accelerated game that we're running here today. I am Randy Oest, your host. I go by Amazing Rando online and just about all of the different social media accounts. I run the Fate SRD, and the video that you're watching today is brought to you by the Patreons of the Fate SRD. Thank you to everyone who contributes to help keep the site going and allow us to do fun actual plays like this. With that, I'm going to pass the baton around for people to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their character. I'm going to be the game master today, and promote anything that they'd like to promote, and then we're going to get into the game. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dylan Greene.
Alrighty. My name is Dylan Greene, pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to be playing Joth Emberrain. And just the general concept, the high concept is we have a dark elf prankster, very Bart Simpson. That was one of my big inspirations. And right now, my big thing is I just started a Substack. dylangreene.substack.com, and that's where you can find all of my upcoming stuff. I have like tabletop RPG stuff, video content, written content. It's just an enormous smorgasbord that you can partake in.
Marvelous. Thank you, Dylan. I'm going to pass the baton now to Maggie.
Hello there, I am Maggie Mae, she, her. I go by Glurptiblip on socials. I run games on SPG, specifically Welcome to the End of All Things, a librarian multiverse experience in Fate Accelerated. And I am playing Tilly, Bloz's sibling and sidekick hopeful.
Excellent, excellent. And we have a second Dylan with us today. Dylan Shad.
Hi, yeah, I'm Dylan Shad. I am the Gamemaster, storyteller, and host of the Children of Ash podcast, which is a real play RPG podcast about telling stories about the world after the world. I am here playing Solace Augustus Coddleton. Yeah, we had a quick name change during that coffee break from Silas to Solace. Solace is a kid from privilege who couldn't quite make it in the nice school, got kicked out, and is now with all of these chuckleheads. He will tell you that he knows the truth about everything. Everything is a conspiracy. For instance, all of the maps of the world, they're flat, but it's a lie. Everybody is wrong. The world is not flat. The world is actually a cube.
So does that make him a cubist? How that works?
No, he just prefers the term knowledge. He just knows. He doesn't like to put labels on things.
Excellent. Finally, Hessan.
Hello, everybody. Hessan Youngdi, pronouns they, them. I'm on social media pretty much everywhere, either under Hessan Youngdi or Hessan's County. For example, on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel where I create lots of videos talking about like system reference documents and TTRPGs and the various things like Fate, although I haven't done one on Fate yet. And also, actually, I'm releasing a game right now called Talea Foundation. That's going to be starting in January-ish, the very, very end of January, and running all the way to April 30th for reasons that will make sense once you look at it, if you take a look at the game. And my character is Bloz, and they are a goblin and a sibling to Maggie's character Tilly, and feels kind of in her shadow, but also is very inspired by MageGyver and wants to sort of emulate him and kind of become that sort of person for the city.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the game is called the Journal of Chester Crumbletorch. I keep wanting to say Crumble Batch. What can I say? I like Benedict Cumberbatch, but it is Crumbletorch, Chester Crumbletorch. Chester Crumbletorch is a legend among children. 20 years ago, he went missing, but there are all sorts of rumors about him. Like, for instance, he managed to beat a sphinx at riddles. He was an agent for a far off kingdom that added like a bunch of like mystery to him. There are rumors that he was secretly funded by the goblin unions within the city, basically being like a paid actor. And he was, there are rumors even now that he is secretly in town undercover. And that's why he's gone missing, because he is undercover. He is also the real life basis for a series of stage plays going on in the city under the name MageGyver. And there are all sorts of different stage plays under MageGyver. The current one that is running was MageGyver : I memorized explosive runes today, about him sending a letter to the bad guy of the story and defeating them with explosive runes, which is a lot of fun. The city that we're in We actually have not given a name to the city, and that's okay. It doesn't need a name. The important thing is that we have a name for, well, the city is set in a fantasy world. If you're imagining something like Waterdeep or Neverwinter or Baldur's Gate or Zobek or any of those sorts of fantasy cities with all sorts of elves and dwarves and goblins and gnomes and half-orcs, you're in the right place. And tieflings, I can't forget tieflings. They're very popular tieflings. And so all within this city. We don't need a name for the city because we have a name for the school that everyone is attending, and that is Westgate Middle. Westgate Middle is an inner city school inside of this fantasy city. Their mascot is the Westgate Wyverns. There is a lot of chatter about how it's pronounced. Is it wyverns, wyverns? And the school colors are green and red to represent the green of the wyvern and the red of the flame that comes out of the wyvern. And this is where we find ourselves today. We find ourselves in a typical school day with our friends here. I like to start things in media res. And so I'm going to be saying that all four of you, as we determined in character creation, that the four of you are in the Crumbletorch Club. If each of you could tell me why you're in the Crumbletorch Club, and then we'll set up the situation that you find yourselves in.
Well, Bloz is in the Crumbletorch Club because of the connection between Crumbletorch and MageGyver and their obsession with like just the fiction built around the character.
All right, so Bloz is very much a MageGyver / Crumbletorch like nerd. You kind of like just know everything. Great. Why are the rest of you in the club?
Well, I think it's very important that everybody remember that last word, fiction. This is all a fiction. It's a farce. It is being used to hide all sorts of nefarious deeds that they don't want you to know about. And that's why I'm here, to reveal the truth and make sure you all stop being sheep, or whatever the fantasy
no one wants to get polymorphed into a sheep.
The fantasy version of sheep would be.
Well, I mean, it could still be sheep.
Of course, Solace. But I could tell you why I'm here. I'm here because Principal Smudgeon put me here. All I gotta do is just play the right cards, and then I'm out, and I'm back to my usual shenanigans.
What was the prank that landed you in here?
I'm gonna state that like I basically materialized like a cherry bomb into existence and just shoved it in someone's backpack and blew it up.
That only gets you chess club assignment in this school? Oh my god.
It was a small cherry bomb with limited.
It was a cherry bomb in that it explodes into a bunch of cherries.
Very good. Yes, PG-13.
Yeah, there you go.
So there we go.
Yeah, it doesn't cause a lot of harm. It just makes everything more difficult to
How about it's a cherry pie bomb?
Cherry pie bomb. Where there's just now like it gets hit with the cherry pie.
Marvelous. And lastly,
Tilly is here because extracurriculars look very good to prospective higher education. But that's purely on paper. She is here because her sibling is here.
All right, so we've got two goblin kids, we've got a dark elf prankster, and we've got a human conspiracy theorist who are all part of the club. So here's the deal. I like to start things in media res. Now that we know why you're all in the club, you're all giant nerds. And what happens to nerds? They get bullied. So of course you are currently running from your bullies. Okay, we are going to be doing in Fate. There are a variety of ways of resolving scenes. We can do challenges, we can do contests, and we can do conflicts, challenges, and I can't believe I'm skipping out on the last one. I've got it written down as chase. That's not it. There's one for like conflict, challenge, and contest. That's it. Contest. I run the Fate SRD. I should know this stuff, right? I don't. I just make it up as I go along. What we're going to do with this scene, the scene is a challenge. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this challenge. Each of you is going to tell me how you're going to avoid the bullies in the scene that I set up. So I'm going to be doing 4 scenes. I'll set up the scene. Each of you can then say like, well, I'm going to lead this scene and get us away from the bullies by doing this. And then we'll move on to another scene because I want to showcase a little bit more of the school and the area as you guys are running from your bullies. If you get caught by your bullies, your character is going to, like, we're not going to run a conflict. Your character is just going to be steamrolled by the bullies. And things aren't going to be pleasant for you. You're nerds. You don't want that to happen. I mean, think of, was it the Christmas movie where like you're always trying to avoid the bullies? You don't want to get caught. You don't want to have happen to you what happened to Randy in that movie. So first scene that we find ourselves in as part of this challenge is that you are running through the stage area of the school. Okay. Imagine an auditorium with a stage. There are the acting students up on stage. They are practicing, they are rehearsing for a stage performance of MageGyver. I memorized Explosive Runes today. That's going to be like a live show that happens on the weekend, and they're doing a full dress rehearsal. You are running through either the stage area or the auditorium part, whatever you decide that you would like to do. And you are trying to avoid your bullies. Question that I have for you is, first, Hessan, who does your character, hold on, I'm getting used to names. Hessan is Bloz. Bloz. Who does Bloz blame in your little group for getting the bullies to start chasing after you?
Oh, I think this is, I'm going to go for the low fruit, and I'm going to assume that the cherry pie incident was like somebody in the group, not the people chasing us, but like somebody they're protecting or something, some popular kid, and now the bullies are after us.
All right, so Solace, you blame Solace.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be
no,
Joth?
Joth? No, it's Joth.
Yeah, Joth.
Joth. Sorry, I saw the word Dylan. Having 2 Dylans is not good.
Yeah, usually there's like a 1 Dylan limit in any situation I'm in where there's only 1.
So Bloz, they blame Joth for this
because he probably did it.
Well, that's my next question. So
Joth,
why cherries?
So Joth, you know the real reason why the bullies are chasing you. What is the real reason the bullies are chasing you right now? Was it your fault?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. Yeah. But I had a good reason for it. Like, I'm gonna state that like one of them got under like, I will say that like there's a little bit of a tinge of benevolence to the pranking, in that like they were going after someone who was kind of lower on the totem pole, who didn't deserve their torment. So I was like, all right. You want to play that game? I'll play that game.
All right. Yeah. You were standing up for someone, but everybody else thinks it's because of the cherry pie bomb. So, all right, great. We find ourselves in this scene. You guys are running from the bullies. We'll learn more about the bullies as we go on. But in this moment, in this area, who is like, how are you going to get out of this situation? One of you can make a roll. Tell me how you're trying to get away from the bullies. And if you're successful, we move on to the next scene. If you fail, we still move on to the next scene, but there'll be repercussions.
I think Bloz is going to try to solve this little problem.
All right.
And I think Bloz is going to know that there's like that if we go through the wing, that there's a door in the middle of the backstage that will kind of get us out and away. And I think Bloz also happens to know that there's like a bunch of like cables, extra cables for the lights and stuff. So I think what Bloz is going to try to do is sort of rig up like a sort of cable, basically like a cable lock on the door as we escape through it, so that the bullies at least slow them down enough so that we can get a little bit further away, if not force them to go around.
That sounds like you are cleverly approaching this. Is that the approach that you were intending to use?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 2. Go ahead and give us a roll in Foundry. That is a 3 against a difficulty of 2. That is successful. I have the option to spend some fate points to adjust this roll if I want to make it more difficult. I don't at this point. I think it's fair. I think that you managed to all like just run right through the auditorium. You said you grabbed up some cable, so I imagine like you're kind of the stage managers are not very pleased with you right now. But the actors on stage just literally are just stepping over the cables as you're pulling them, basically ignoring you, like going through like the lines, like yes, and then I memorized explosive runes today. And you manage to get the door sealed up. You guys are safely on the other side. The bullies are pounding on it. They're like, "We're going to get you, butt wipes." And you hear them run off to go around to another exit to follow after you. So you have succeeded in one of the challenges of this multi-challenge kind of situation. The next place that you find yourselves in as you're kind of like running through, you're like kind of going down the hallways of the school, the bullies are right there behind you, and you're going to dart into a room, which I will describe in a moment, but I would like you to tell me something about the bullies. Tell me a couple of facts about the bullies. Like, why are they bullies? Are they big kids? Are they mean kids? Are they like, tell me something about the bullies. Like, why are they so fearsome to your
Well,
group?
they've clearly been paid off to shut down my truth telling. That's why they showed up when they did and not earlier, not when I wasn't part of the group.
That is obviously very true.
Someone would actually give a real answer, though.
Maggie, go ahead.
They are the hallway sorcerers. They know a little bit of magic.
Oh, okay. So they know a little bit of magic and they're using that to like lord it above everyone.
Yeah.
What kind of magic do they know? Like what's the trick that they know that they use to push people around? Is it telekinesis? Is it a little bit of enchantment? Like, is it like, what's the little magic trick they use to torture other kids?
I would say that even though they're magical, they're not super creative, so the telekinesis is very much on point.
All right. So they know a little bit of, they know mage hand.
Yes,
and
mage
they
hand
smack
all the
people
time.
with mage hand. All right. Great.
That isn't like every bard these
All
days.
right. Yeah, seriously. Like, do you know how much sexual assault bards make with mage hand? It's terrible. Goodness. All right. So you guys are running down the hallway and you like the bullies are beginning to catch up to you and you dart into a room for safety. As you like shut the door and kind of like duck down and the bullies go running, you have realized that you are in the teacher's lounge. So there are like several tables, benches there. There is all sorts of like collections of teas and coffees. There's no refrigerator because while this is a fantasy world, like there's an ice box. We'll put it that way. There's an ice box with a block of ice in it, literally. And there are several teachers in this room. Who wants to solve this problem of being in the teacher's lounge and trying to get out without the teachers causing you a problem? Hessan has already taken a turn. I'd like to spread the wealth around.
How many teachers are in this room with us?
That's a great question. I'm going to say that there are 3 teachers. There's one of them standing next to the windows, a tiefling smoking a cigarette. And there are 2 other teachers who are sitting at one of the tables, like drinking tea. We'll say one of them is a phys ed teacher and another one is a substitute teacher. The phys ed teacher is an orc. And the substitute teacher is an elf who looks woefully out of place here, like just wearing like clothes that are like really nicely done, fashionable elven clothes. And that is not something that teachers wear here. So it's obvious that like this elf as a substitute teacher did not know what they were getting themselves into. And in fact, the conversation between the orcish gym teacher and the substitute is just basically like, the kids are wild here. I cannot believe what they do. I asked them to calm down and they don't. And the orc is like, did you try hitting them with a basketball? Who wants to take the lead on this part of the challenge?
I think that this is actually a perfect opportunity for Solace Augustus Coddleton, because this sub that you just described, this sounds like a teacher that he probably encountered before at his old school, that he might already have some level of relationship with, not necessarily saying it's a good one or a bad one, but it is a familiar face.
You know each other.
And Coddleton, they're gonna run up to the teacher and start just babbling. They're trying to find something to do, something to get them out of here, save really their own skin more than the group, because sheep eventually get slaughtered. But in the meantime, just there's wow, I'm blanking on a name for this teacher, but Miss Perkins, it's so good to see you here. Do you smell smoke? I'm gonna try to get them to open a window for us to escape through. I swear. I mean, burnt toast, smoke. I something, but I can. Oh, it's awfully tight in here. Can we open it? And because I have on my character sheet that they're getting over some sort of magical flu, sneeze.
All right. So here's the deal. You are suffering from the magical flu. And I think that sneezing here would be a great opportunity for a compel. And I think that I would like to offer you a fate point. So as I've said previously, compels are when I complicate your life based on your aspects. I offer you a fate point. You can either accept it, the complication and the fate point, or you can spend a fate point to decline it. This complication, your aspect is what I'm recovering from the flu, magical flu. Yes, recovering from a magical flu. I'm going to compel this that the complicating factor here, you are going to, I'm going to say that since it's a magical flu, I want to make it kind of like a little bit fun. You are going to sneeze so hard that you are going to sneeze so hard that your mouth pops off, and you're going to have to carry around your mouth with you for a little bit. Like it is separate from you, and thus could potentially become lost.
I'm picturing like dentures popping out and he's carrying around that stuff talking. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Like your teeth, like, and all of you, like your conversation comes from that. Like this is the part of the magical flu.
Sure. I will accept that.
All right. When you sneeze and your teeth come out, the Miss Perkins, the elven substitute teacher, seems kind of like nonplussed, and is just kind of like meanwhile, the orcish physical education instructor does kind of like jump up from his chair, and he's got a basketball in his hand, like kind of. Just kind of like getting ready to throw it, but then like stops because it's a student. So yes, you have, however, made your case that like there's a lot of smoke. You obviously have some kind of flu. The teachers probably want to get rid of you. What approach are you kind of going for here for trying to get them to open a window for you guys to crawl out of?
I was going for clever, which I've marked as average, so that's why I kind of went with a so argument there. I don't know if there actually is any smoke, by the way. I'm just like trying to create a thing. But
there was the tiefling teacher smoking next to the window, so like you smelling smoke, like kind of is fair, but like it's obvious that like you kind of want to get out of here. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 2. Go ahead and roll your clever. All right, so you get a 0 result. Now, this is an overcome, which means that you've got some choices. First, I set the difficulty for 2, and you can decide to spend a fate point to give yourself a +2 or a reroll. If you tie the number on an overcome, you succeed at a minor cost. You also, with an overcome, can always choose to succeed, but it would be succeeding at a cost. You can also choose to just fail if you don't want to pay what the cost is. So I guess my first question is, do you want to pay a fate point to get to a success at a minor cost? Or do you want to hear what a cost for this would be?
I think let's hear what a cost for this would be.
Sure. I think that I'm going to say a major cost for this is going to be that the bullies are going to pick up on where you went a lot faster. I'm going to say that success at a cost for this is going to be, as you're escaping, the bullies are going to cross over. So here's what I'm imagining happening, and you can say yes or no. I'm imagining that like in the teacher's lounge, there's a door for leaving outside the teacher's lounge. And basically like they kind of like escort you like out very quickly because they don't want to get the magical flu that you have. And when you get out into the field there, the bullies are out there, and the bullies are going to get an attack on you. I'm going to make an attack roll. You're going to get to defend, and then we're going to move into the next scene. So the cost is that the bullies are going to get an attempt at doing you harm.
All right.
Now it's going to be kid-like harm. It's not going to be stabbed with a dagger. So that's what I'm imagining the cost is. Do you like that cost? Or do you want to spend a fate point, get a minor cost? It's up to you.
You know what? Just for funsies, let's spend a fate point, get a minor cost. I think I'm going to spend a fate point and kind of use this as a means of rather, I'm going to explain it away with that's, this teacher does remember me, does kind of have a like, oh my god, this kid again. What trouble have you gotten yourself into now? Okay, fine, whatever. And they recognize that what I'm doing, but they're going along with it just to get me out of their hair.
The minor cost is going to be that you're going to be assigned detention. The substitute teacher knows your name, doesn't know the others' names, so you're the one who's going to get detention. But it's a minor cost because who knows if that's even going to come into play. However, detention is hanging over you like the sword of Damocles. Yes. What to spend a fate point, you need to justify it with an aspect. What aspect justifies that?
I think it would be the couldn't make it in the nice school. That explains the relationship. That explains the that dynamic, I think.
Sounds good to me. Go ahead and spend your fate point. Great. That is success at a minor cost. The minor cost is that you're going to be assigned detention, and you go out the doors, and you continue running. And in fact, the very next scene, which I actually had written down here, was that you are on the sports ball field for the Wyverns school practice. And that is where we find ourselves in the third scene. Our first scene was going through the stage play. Our second scene was the teacher's lounge. The third one is the Wyverns school sports ball practice. Now, we've not declared what the sports ball practice is, but I do want, and I'm intentionally not going to ask what the sports ball event is, because I think it's best if we just all talk around it a little bit and never declare it. But what I do want to know is, what is the bullies' relationship to the Wyverns, the sports team? Are they part of the team? Are they buddies with the team?
I think they're part of a rival clique at the school.
I think that they probably are kids who they wanted to be on the team, but they couldn't for some reason. and that's that like rival clique kind of vibe. It's like, oh, I didn't want to be part of that anyway.
So does that mean that they are part of like a secondary sport at the school? Are they members of the band? Are they like the outsiders?
Excuse me, members of the band?
Listen,
no, definitely not. The band is better.
Listen,
I love the idea of the band kids being the bullies in the school.
Listen, my wife was super into band in high school, and she still loves it to this day. We went to her big like reunion like this past year. It's fantastic. I have nothing but hearty respect for band kids, but I agree with what was just said. Like making the band kids the bullies. It's kind of funny to me, but I'm okay with a no as well.
I think that's great.
And I want to go back and revise something. It's not that they wanted to be on the team.
Yes.
It's that they wanted to be like the band that plays as part of the team's entrance kind of thing, and they got replaced because they just kept getting too crazy with their antics.
They couldn't learn the Fleetwood Mac songs well enough.
They like tried to do fire trombones and stuff. It just went bad.
All right. Okay. So the bullies are band kids who learned Mage Hand.
Our bullies are bards. Our bullies are bards.
Our bullies are bards.
Oh boy.
That explains the Mage Hand.
Oh my God, this is amazing. All right, great. So, yes, you are on the sports ball pitch for the Westgate Wyverns. So, who's taking the lead on dodging the bullies as these bards are trying to slap you and grab you with mage hands?
This sounds like a Joth scene, and it sounds like so we're going across the sports ball field, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trick whatever sports balls are flying in the air. I'm gonna have them home in on the bullies like they're just targets. So that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Using a little bit of trickery magic.
Turning the jocks and the band kids against each other. I love it.
Oh yeah.
So now there's a couple of different ways that we can view this. Like the magic is making the sports balls, them could be forceful because you're trying to forcefully hit them with it. It could be clever as you're like twisting the quarterback pitcher for the game to throw the sports ball at them. There's a couple of different ways that we could kind of like tackle the approaching. Like what's the narrative behind it?
So what I'm thinking is like I snap my fingers and they just turn into targets, like literal targets.
All right. Well, it sounds like forceful to me.
Oh, that's the worst.
Well, I mean, you're kind of like pushing them to do that. If you're trying to so I know that clever is your top skill. If you're trying to like approach this cleverly, and so I'm going to give you an example. I don't want you to think that I'm like quarterbacking your character and telling you what to do. I'm trying to provide examples because sometimes with approaches, what we think feels right, like we need to have some discussion. All right. If you wanted to make a clever approach work, it would be kind of like trying to arrange the game to like, maybe you like kick one of the sports balls in an opposite direction, and that forces the rain of other sports balls that come down from the machine to land on the bullies. Like that would be kind of like cleverly like redirecting the game. Like maybe the sports ball players end up like rushing to tackle. Maybe you trick one of the bullies into catching the ball and they get tackled. That would be like a little bit more of a clever approach. Whereas wanting to use like trickery magic to have the sports balls just hit them directly, it feels a little bit more like a forceful approach because you're just trying to pummel them. Does that, first of all, I want to check in, and does that make sense, Dylan?
Yeah, it
okay.
does. Like I do want to involve trickery magic in this somehow because that's Joth's character, but I'm thinking we could
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
I was thinking one thing you could do is basically like create an illusion that makes the bullies look make the people on the team think that the bullies are. We mentioned making them look like targets. Maybe you're just using the magic to sort of trick the them to think that they're the targets they're supposed to be, like, it's some sort of like target practice.
That's literally
thing.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like,
But
literally,
it's
like
but
the illusion.
but instead of it actually like making them look like, instead of making just basically kind of like forcing, let's say mentally forcing or something them to target them, it's just more like creating an illusion so that it looks like they should be doing this. So some of them might not, and that might explain why the roll might fail or not. But
yeah. Like you prestidigitate their clothes into the opposing school's colors or
something.
something.
There we go.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
There we go. So I snap my fingers and I change the color of their shirts. I give them sports outfits.
All right. So they go from band jackets to sports uniforms, in green and red. This is a practice, so everybody's wearing green and red, because it's like an internal like scrimmage. Go ahead and roll clever. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at a 2.
All right.
All right. So that is a 4 result. So your clever approach was a 4 against a difficulty of 2. And that is a success. So you're good. You managed to you cast that trickery magic to make the illusion, and your bullies get tackled. Now you do see the bullies like trying to use Mage Hand to push the people away as they're approaching, but that doesn't end up working really well. But they get tackled anyway. You lot manage to get onto the next scene. However, the bullies do end up like pulling themselves out of like the pile up and everything, and the sports team's like, "Oh, we're so sorry, we thought you were part of practice, blah blah blah," and they're like, "Yeah, well, like," and then they kind of see you lot and begin chasing after you again.
As we're running away, I just want to, since I kind of imagine we're like running around the side of things and there's like bleachers around, I want to see if I can quickly like grab some gum or something so I can take the mouth and kind of like stick it to my shoulders, opposed to needing to carry it around everywhere.
Well, you can also put it in your pocket, but yeah, you can find gum, and
I think it's just cooler to have a little, little mouth parrot.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Also,
all right,
should
there
I
you
be
go.
recording that in the mild consequence notes, or like how am I recording that? Okay.
Nope. This is just so I did not make this an aspect because I don't think it warrants having an aspect. But it's a complicating factor. Like, for instance, if I decided that I wanted to actually, you know what? This is a great opportunity to do another compel. I'm sorry I keep coming back to you with compels, but this is where we sit right now.
I'll take the fate points.
Great. So you've decided, you're like, oh, I need to find some gum to stick my mouth on top of my shirt. Well, I'm going to offer you a fate point on your I have the magical flu, because it ties into this situation that you find yourself in. And I am going to actually say that you have lost your mouth. It is somewhere on the field right now. So do you want that fate point?
That's a terrifying, I mean, sure, but only because I have no idea how this is going to play out, which is exactly what I love.
And so take the fate point. One thing that I will remind you of as a player, like, your character can still write, still sign, still, like, we can find a way for your character to communicate. Everybody now has a very difficult choice. Do you want to stay and find good old, let's see, I'm looking, Solace's? Do we want to stay and find Solace's mouth on this sports ball pitch? And if you do, you're obviously going to encounter the bullies and they are going to not be kind to you. Or do you keep running from the bullies and maybe come back and find it later? That's not a compel. It's a decision that you as a group have to make.
I think that Solace is probably like kind of freaking out and looking around and obviously indicating that he wants to stay, but without a mouth, probably not really able to communicate very well, and therefore I will stand out of this vote so that we have an odd number of people to vote.
Tilly her eyes will be darting back and forth between Bloz and Solace, going, I have gum in my satchel, like tacky stuff in my satchel. Go get it! But we'll otherwise defer to the group.
I think it's time to be a hero. Joth, distraction?
Coming right up.
All right. So you've all collectively decided that you're going to stay and find Solace's mouth. You know that you need a distraction to keep the bullies away. I think this is a good first step. And Joth, you've been called out for a distraction. That seems like it's in your wheelhouse.
Alrighty. I am going to project an illusory wyvern onto the field. Now, I'm imagining this will be a difficult role, but I am so down for it.
So what is your intent with the magical wyvern being on the field?
It will capture everyone's attention. It will make them look up and be like, oh my gosh, it is a magical wyvern on the field.
That sounds like you are cleverly creating a distraction. I believe, is that the approach that you're intending, or are you intending a different approach?
I think it could be clever. Some people have also pointed out flashy. Like it is flashy as a.
I think flashy seems a little bit better to me, more appropriate.
Yeah.
If you're good with that, let's roll flashy.
I am going to roll flashy.
All right. I didn't give you a difficulty. The difficulty for this would have been 2. So you are 1 under because you've got a 1 result. There's a couple of different ways we can view this. We can view this as you're trying to create a distraction, which I view as kind of create advantage roll, where you're trying to create an aspect called illusionary wyvern or wyvern distraction, which would have a free invoke on it whenever you create it. Right now, you are 1 under the difficulty, which means that you're going to fail to create it. Now, I have the option as the GM to create the aspect, but in my favor, if I decide to do that. I'm probably not. I'll tell you that. So you have to decide, do you want to spend a fate point on this or not?
I think I will. This is part of my build up to my whole town prank. That's the wish aspect I'm going to invoke, is that this is a prank that I've been refining because my intention is to create an even bigger illusion spell that I can use to prank the whole town.
That's good. Go ahead and spend your fate point. That takes your result to a 3 against a difficulty of 2. I am, however, going to choose this moment to spend one of my fate points as a GM. I am going to spend a fate point to invoke Principal Smudgeons always got their eyes on me. So as you're creating this illusionary wyvern, you see in the near where the coach is, you see Principal Smudgeon. And he sees this wyvern pop up and then sees you and just immediately starts yelling at the kids who are in charge of the usual mascots. And you see another illusionary wyvern gets created that's 50% bigger than yours, that begins basically kind of stomping yours.
Oh no.
Now this sounds like this would be a big distraction, but this is actually making it harder for you to concentrate on making yours the distraction, because the principal is saying, hey, making sure that the coaches are focusing all of the students on where they're supposed to be. So that makes the difficulty go from 2 to 4. You have a 3. You now have to choose whether or not you want to spend another fate point.
All right, so I think I'm going to go for one more, which
All
is
right.
You'll Never Make Me Invisible, because there's nothing I can't stand more than, basically Smudgeon is here trying to stomp out my fun, redouble my resolve, and I'm like, oh no, this is not going to go down this way. So I redouble my efforts.
All right. I'm going to stop pitching in fate points. I think that's fine. Tell me how your Wyvern illusion, that's like a little bit smaller than theirs, like defeats the main like Wyvern illusion, or the big
I kind of envision Joth going like, come on, and then like there's like an opening and it goes for the other illusionary Wyvern's throat, throws it around like a rag doll. That's what I'm imagining.
Okay.
And I kind of make this really showy pose at the end. Of course, Smudgeon is like looking at me being like, I'm going to put this kid in detention for the rest of his life. But I'm not aware of that right now.
Yeah. And funny you should mention that. I've got a compel for you. Principal Smudgeon sees this situation, is not happy with it. And he's going to use a little bit of his principal magic. A small little red magical dart clamps around like a little magical like ring of red light, circles around your ankle, making it very obvious where your location is. The compel is that you now have this red anklet that makes it harder for you to hide. You also know, now this has happened to you like 100 times, so this is not your first time. You know that the principal now knows your location when you're on school grounds. When you're off school grounds, it is still there, but the principal does not know your location. He only knows your location when you're on school grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like that compel?
So I think it would make the session more interesting. So we're gonna keep it. And like I get the ankle, the magical ankle monitor, that's what it is. And then like I just yell, screw you, Smudgeon, and I run off. You may know where I am, but you got nothing on me until you catch me.
Fantastic. So you have made this distraction. Tilly, where do you find Solace's teeth? You don't have to make a roll. Just where do you find them?
Full mouth.
Oh, they're in the middle of the field.
Full mouth. Sorry.
Your mouth is in the middle of the field. They're still scrimmaging.
No, you find them and you're able to provide them back to him.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make us do a bunch of like rolls for this.
Thank goodness.
But
so it was on the field, just like wipe it off. So, like, hand it back.
I imagine I was also probably like, if you paid attention, the yelling and talking that I wasn't able to do, I actually was doing. It just was all the way over there. So it's probably a little bit of like you can find it just by listening.
I'm over here.
Oh, I was definitely not that
find
aware.
My phone.
All right, Solace, would you like your mouth to go back into where it belongs?
I mean, would Solace like that? Yes.
Well, what do you
want as a player? I
think
it would be fun to run around with this a little bit more. All
right, great. Yeah, let's keep it going then.
Grabbing the gum and just like having a little parrot mouth.
Perfect. So you've got a little parrot mouth there. All right, great. The bullies collect themselves and begin chasing you. There is one last scene in this challenge to get away from the bullies. The very last scene is actually off of school grounds. This is the tracks behind the school, not track as in track and field, tracks as in like railroad tracks. So like you are in an inner city school, there are tracks that kind of like come through. There are all sorts of different like train cars that are being pedaled by goblin engineers who are kind of coming through. So if you're imagining like, a couple of different tracks that have like trains on them. In this case, it would be more like carts because we need to kind of scale it down a little bit to make like pedaling for the goblins and whoever the goblins hire a little bit different. But basically these are the tracks behind the school, like the school dumpsters back here. This is where all of the, the older kids come to smoke. And so this is the area that you find yourself in. So far with our challenges, let's see, we had Bloz. They took care of the first one. Bloz took care of the stage practice. Then the teacher's lounge was taken care of by Solace. The Wyvern's school practice, I have to admit, I lost track. That was Joth.
Yeah.
Joth. So that kind of leaves us with Tilly. How is Tilly getting us out of the bullies from in this particular situation?
No pressure. Tilly's been in enough physics and math classes to know how this is going to go down. So we have the carts approaching at a specific speed, and we, if we launch ourselves just at the right time, and I can keep an eye from over here, just jump onto the nearest cart. It'll probably take you back into the town center, where we can kind of scatter from there.
That sounds like a very sounds good to me. Sounds kind of clever. Is that what you're going for?
I was aiming for the aspect of sort of watching, waiting, sort of like until the last moment where it's safest when it slows down. Hoping for careful, but I will take clever if necessary.
No, careful is fine. Go ahead. I'm going to set the difficulty for this at 2. You are all attempting. I'm imagining that in order to like be able to jump into this thing, that you all have to kind of like climb on the dumpster and then jump in. That sounds great to me. Go ahead and make a careful roll, difficulty 2.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
All right. So you got a 4 against a difficulty of 2. That is fantastic. You, as you're climbing up on the dumpster, one of the lunch staff kind of comes out and says, "What are you kids doing up there? Stop smoking up there. Get down." And then you like jump into the, into one of the carts that's kind of coming by. Just at that moment, like they didn't see you jump in, the bullies kind of come around the corner and they kind of like look around, and the main bully kind of turns to like his minions, is just like, "Oh, we're gonna get those butt wipes." And you are safely in this cart headed for the middle of town. Now, you have successfully managed to get away from the bullies. You are in a cart. You have left school early, but like that's okay. This is a movie. No one cares. I will say that the cart that you find yourself in, the like longer, you're one of many carts. So you're some distance from the folks who are like pedaling and creating motion for this particular cart on the tracks. The cart that you're in is very old. Like as you kind of move a little bit of trash around, you can see that it is made of a wood that really isn't used anymore. You don't know what kind of wood it is. You just know that like this is like durable wood from a more faraway region. And as you're kind of like looking around, first, Solace, you recognize that there are like some markings on this cart that you're in, and you're like, this is reclaimed. This used to not be a cart. Like this used to be like somebody's house. Like you see, like this was a part of a mantle for a fireplace, and this was like part of the wall, and this cart was like built out of other pieces.
You can see here, this is why the goblins, they didn't always run the trains. They used to live in them. Look at that.
Heavy side eye from Tilly.
Solace, we like, you know, we would build the carts, yeah, but I don't remember anybody saying anything about living in them.
Well, that's because they don't want you to know. This is how they control you.
There are worse places. Yeah. Come on, folks. We're acting like we've never hitched a ride before. I don't know about you, but I have.
The wood is not from around here. Look at this. This is clear signs that of interference in our own government by outside forces.
Yep, from the shadow dimension.
Don't joke about the shadow dimension.
I wasn't joking.
though it's not related here. That's a don't get me started on the shadow dimension.
Yeah, sure. The goblins run everything. I'm sure if Tilly had asked really nicely, they would have just stopped the train for us, and then we wouldn't have even needed to jump on the train.
They're just
right?
a cog in a
right,
greater
Tilly?
machine.
Well, if you ask anybody nicely enough, they generally tend to help out. Yeah.
Where are we going anyway?
We should be. Well, I think just around that bend is going to be McCormick's, and then. Well, shoot, I don't know.
Spice family?
Yeah.
The Spice family.
You go to school with their daughters, the Spice Girls.
with their pepper empire.
Yeah. Oh my
Don't joke about Spice Empires. That can get real ugly real quick. I think Solace is making such a big deal about this thing. I'm gonna say that I'm just gonna sort of look at this and see if there's is there anything else here that would suggest that because I mean he's claiming that this used to be a house. Okay, so what else here is is there anything anything jumping out at me?
So I was going to ask who was going to set up the trap, and it sounds like you just volunteered.
Sure, I guess so.
So in this instance, we're going to pretend that there's an aspect of on this cart that's built from an old house with traps, because I want to offer you a fate point. And it is okay for us to agree that things that weren't aspects were aspects that we can kind of hang some fate points on. We don't have to enumerate every single aspect as we go through, but there are some things in the story that we can all agree on. If we don't agree, speak up. I'm happy to do something differently. But my thought was there's definitely a trap here, and one of you would be setting it off, and you were just asking for it. So I would like to offer you a fate point. What you are going to kind of find is on the wall that Solace pointed out. You're kind of checking it out. There is 2 half circles kind of coming together like this in the wall. And that CC is frequently the symbol for Chester Crumbletorch. And when you touch it, in the space between the C's, you can see how it kind of looks like a little bit of an S. If you're watching the video, you can see my hands. There's a little bit of an S. And a sepia snake sigil pops out. An illusionary snake just kind of comes out and grabs you in the arm. And you're going to get the aspect paralyzed for a short while, or at least until somebody figures out how to solve it. You can still talk, but you just can't move your body. And it also, one way or another, it's going to reveal a secret compartment. So I guess my question for you, Hessan, would you like that compel?
Yeah, I'm thinking that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, you go in and do that, and you all see a snake jump out. You all have done enough research into Chester Crumbletorch to know that he was a big fan of explosive runes and sepia snake sigil, illusionary script, all of that kind of stuff. No surprise that was tied to his initials. And when you pressed it, a little plate fell off, revealing a space basically behind the mantle, except the mantle is upside down because this card is reclaimed from the house. And our good friend Bloz, they've been paralyzed. They can talk and kind of move their head, but that's about it.
I'm thinking, just to make this more amusing, that Bloz is paralyzed to the snake was kind of going like that, so he's kind of like this. But he also got turned around and was standing on one foot, so he can't actually see anything that's going on the wall or behind him. So you're all just gonna have to describe. You're just all gonna have to describe it for them.
Bloz, are you okay?
I've been better.
Solace is
what was that?
Rookie mistake falling for that.
Solace is just kind of uncomfortably in your face, just kind of examining you, looking you up and over. telling you, this is how they keep their secrets hidden.
By randomly paralyzing people?
You looked too close.
What am I going to tell our guardians?
That I ran into a basilisk.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that sounds actually really cool, and I think I will tell that. Is that okay? Is it okay if I say that? That sounds really
sure.
cool.
Let's spin this.
So I do want to point out, Joth actually does have a stunt called plausible deniability, so that we can use that if need be.
And I don't think Tilly would have anything that could treat paralysis, magical paralysis in her satchel. But I mean, she's gonna root around in there, just like.
If I may, I'm going to say that one of the things that you just kind of pull out incidentally as you're looking through is a feather. I'm just going to grab it from you and start trying to see if he's ticklish.
It does not work.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the, what was it, a box or the plate?
There's like a little cubby, like he pushed it, and like it's a plate that you push in, and then it kind of ejects out a little bit. And there's a not very big, like maybe like about the size of a typical brick. Is the space. Do you want?
I'm gonna see, like, I'm going to use sort of some magic intuition to kind of detect what this thing is.
What kind of information are you trying to get? Are you trying to understand if there are traps, if there are other magical things? Like,
I want to know what this thing does.
What the little hole that has stuff in it? Well, I can tell you use a little bit of magic, but it's basically it's a secret compartment to hold things. So, and it seems like the magical trap is spent.
All right. Well, Joth is a very impulsive character, so he's going to just go ahead and be like, all right, let's see what we got here.
All right. You reach in and you pull out a journal. It is a leather-bound journal with a bunch of like loose leaf paper, a bunch of, if you're thinking, going back to Indiana Jones 3, if you're thinking like that journal with a bunch of like drawings and like notes and stuff in it, that is absolutely the right thing. If you're thinking of Supernatural, the Winchester's dad's journal, that's also like a good kind of like touch point. So these are these are touch points for what this journal looks like. And of course, on the outside of it is a lowercase c with a nested another lowercase c for Chester Crumbletorch. So you are certain that this came from Crumbletorch's house where he hid it, which was then demolished and turned into this cart.
All right. It looks like we found Crumbletorch's diary.
What? No way.
Yeah, way. I just hand it to you.
No.
I'm imagining, by the way,
is there a seal
I'm imagining this is all happening behind Bloz, who is probably the most interested person in all of this.
Yes. Bloz, you are not paralyzed so much that you can't shed a single tear as you're not seeing any of this.
I'm biting my tongue because I don't want to ask them to show it to me, but I also want to see it.
I'm going to just look over Joth's shoulder and kind of really actually intently examine everything that I can see, but also just kind of the little mouth on my shoulder is going to start muttering like, it's all lies. It's a plant. This is exactly the kind of nonsense. I'm sure that nothing in here can be trusted. Although, what actually is on the pages?
Sure. So on the pages so it is part journal. Like there are a bunch of like journal entries talking about like stuff that he has done for that far off kingdom. Like, notes, various like people that he met. So there's a little bit of like some history in there. There is a kind of some notes on an encounter that Crumbletorch had with a Sphinx. It does not say that he beat them in a riddle contest, but it does not say that he lost a riddle contest to them, but it confirms that he engaged with a Sphinx. There's also Oh goodness. He was close friends with some of like Goblin Union leadership, like 20 years prior. But it's just like it's not like it's just like, oh, I know these people, I know these people, I know these people. Another part of the journal is there are all sorts of like arcane markings and glyphs. And Joth, since you seem to be the most like magically aptituded, you recognize this as like as spellbook notation, and like if someone needed to like get spells out of this book, they could potentially learn spells from this, functioning as a sort of spellbook. Well, it's definitely a spell book, but it's not like just a spell book. It at most probably has like a dozen spells in it. And then the last part of it is his research into finding a wish. He wrote down in his journal what his wish was, and his wish was to restore the memory of his wife, who had her, like, you don't know why she doesn't remember anything. It doesn't say. But he wanted to restore the memory of his wife with the wish. And there are, with the annotations for like the information about the wish, there is a star charts showing like when they were going to align, and it has a cipher about the location. So do any of you know about like the alignment of the stars? Anything about something like that?
I think that Solace probably does, as part of his, as part of their studies in disproving the astrologers.
Perfect. You look at the star chart and you are able to tell that that this is an alignment that happens once every 106 years, and that tonight is that alignment is happening. The location that goes with it is in a cipher.
I'm imagining that through all of this, you've got like the meme of math stuff just going off in front of his face.
Yes,
as they're calculating all this, and then suddenly it hits the cipher, and just everything just kind of crumbles and falls apart.
Yes. And just to be clear, there are many sections of this journal that are ciphered. And they are intentionally like obscured so that like Chester Crumbletorch would be able to know what it was, but other people reading it wouldn't. So there is a lot of information locked away. So it's not just this one thing, but the location for getting the wish is behind a cipher.
Hey y'all. Is there anything in there about alignments are nice, but is there anything in there about realigning me?
Oh, and suddenly you realize that the cart is in fact now in the like the market square part of your neighborhood. Now would actually be a great time to get off, because the next section is sewage.
Time to bounce. We'll see you later, Bloz.
Yep.
No.
No, I imagine I pick him up like a almost like they're cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
That's what the magic really did. It didn't actually paralyze me. It just turned me into like a two-dimensional object.
It's like a mannequin. That's what I'm imagining.
So Bloz, I'm going to say that like you start to regain some feeling in your legs. And once you all get out of the cart, you can actually like move around very stiffly on your legs, but your arms are still paralyzed as it's starting to wear off.
So I'm just stuck like this for a little while now.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's slowly wearing off.
Hey, okay, let's get moving. Remember, okay. Basilisk.
Our story is Basilisk.
We gotta make this
rapid,
cool.
miraculous
Basilisk.
Recovery.
Yes, indeed.
What would you guys like to do? You're now in the market square part of it. You there are all sorts of different like shops, selling like fresh fruit and vegetables and goods.
Do we have a hideout?
That's a great question. Do you have a hideout?
I've definitely not been with you all enough to know about any hideout. So if we do, it would be Solace's first time hearing about it.
So what I'm gonna do, because I have a stunt called I Know This Place, where I can spend a fate point to declare that you've been to a specified location before. So whether or not I'm thinking like Joth knows his way around this particular area and has a hiding spot, even if not everyone else in the group is privy to it. So I say, all right, follow me. And I take them to kind of this alleyway where usually I go to plan whatever pranks I'm about to pull off.
Awesome. Tell me about this super secret place that you have.
So I'm imagining like it has like one of the things that's the most obvious is like it has this giant bowl, like metal bowl in the middle of it that has like all these scorch marks on it because I'm practicing anything explosive in there. And I would also imagine that it's got a little bit of like of tarp that kind of sections it off as well.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit of a covering there. It's very makeshift. Like I'm just grabbing whatever I can to kind of make it work. Clearly, they were acquired by illicit means. So
Absolutely.
it's, some stolen stuff and, very little of it is permanent. It's very like ramshackle, but it works.
Borrowed, not stolen. Borrowed.
Without permission.
Indeed.
But with every intention of bringing it back.
Absolutely. I'll get it back.
Awesome. So tell me, I'd like everybody to come up with something interesting about this particular hideout. Like you've mentioned the bowl where you've been working on like some stuff and how everything is stolen, borrowed that are in here. There's tarps that are separating various like locations, but like the building, is there a smell? Like, is it hard to get to?
It's got a sulfur smell, I would imagine.
Fair enough.
I think it's like an old attic for like at the top of a business or something that's like just nobody uses anymore. Nobody's been up there in like ages and ages, so nobody realizes that Joss has kind of moved in.
Why don't we say that the shop that's underneath the person running it is deaf, and so that's part of how Joth is able to get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
all right.
It would also. This is the prime location for Joth to also keep track of anything that he's like a major fan of and trying to emulate. So maybe there's a lot of oh god, my head went first was like fan art kind of things, but I think instead of that, like the pranking is his kind of fan art, and there's some famous to him at least prankster that he's got wanted posters stolen off the street that are like on the wall, and some things like that. I don't know how you feel about that, Dylan. Okay, cool.
I like it. Yeah, famous pranksters.
I was thinking like one specific one that you're just kind of half obsessed with.
What if it's gnomish twins, like a boy and a girl, who are like the ultimate pranksters? What would their name be? I know, TikTok. One of them goes by Tick, the other one goes by Talk.
Talk.
Rest in peace.
Last name Blaine.
Yes, Blaine. Tick Blaine and Talk Blaine, the gnomish pranksters.
There we go.
Awesome. Hessan, do you want to contribute something to the secret lair, the hideout?
Oh, it being the attic was
that's
that
right.
I had added.
Then Maggie, did you?
Oh, sorry. I was fixated on Tick and Talk, their proclivity for short form allusions.
Yeah.
But perhaps because it's an attic, maybe it has like this just big dramatic lighting window on the far end wherein one can see the sky.
That sounds great. I love it. All right, so this is the hideout that you find yourselves in. The only illumination will come from any candles that Joth typically has, and the red band of light around Joth's ankle. So yes, this is where you all find yourself. You now have your hideout, and you have the Crumbletorch journal.
All right, let's crack this open.
I have a concern to raise.
I'm not cracking anything, so you guys have fun.
I have a concern.
Well, I'm going to say that the paralysis has. Sorry to interrupt you, Dylan, but I'm going to say the paralysis has worn off. I think we've gotten a good amount of mileage on that. I think now's a good time. All right.
Yeah, and as I'm kind of saying this, I'm also taking my mouth and wiping stuff off of it and trying to fit it back into my face. But do we need to worry about the candles and the sulfur smell? Like, is there anything here we need to be worried about?
We'll be fine. I say this as I make a bunch of fireball juggling in my hand, and I'm just like, yeah, no worries.
Oh my gosh, this is making me think that Tilly has an aspect called safety first, second, third, and last.
I mean, do you have space for it?
Being my sibling, you'd need it.
I mean,
oh yes.
Because I was thinking that Bloz was sitting here thinking, does anybody need to go to the bathroom? Because yay.
So Maggie, if you want to add that aspect, I would be happy to compel that right now.
Sounds good. Bring it on.
All right. So I'm going to offer you a compel on that safety first, second, and last. And you are going to all of the the saltpeter and gunpowder or components that Joth happens to have here while he's juggling flames. You are going to basically spoil the batch. I don't know the chemistry behind it, but you're going to pour something into it that will neutralize it. Essentially taking that off as an option. It is not going to happen, but that of course means Joth doesn't have his various explosives. Joth, that's not going to leak over and impact you, other than if you wanted to grab something explosive in this scene, you're not going to be able to. So Maggie, would you like that compel?
Is Joth okay with my accepting that compel?
So I would be fine with it. I would like to see where it goes. So yes.
Okay.
Basically, anything that's super explosive is neutralized. That doesn't mean you can't cast magic. That doesn't mean you can't do fire magic or anything like that. It just means that if you wanted supplies for a big explosion, that's going to be spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can be mad at Tilly for that too.
Yeah, it's it's oh, come on. Why did you do that?
I think as you're doing this, there's some dust and stuff that gets kicked up, and Solace has another sneeze, and there's a little bit of fire that just pops out. Just go. Thank you.
I'm definitely seeing Tilly moving around behind Joth as he's juggling fire, and just kind of like the moment in Emperor's New Groove where Yzma just dumps the poison into the potted plant. It's just no.
While this is going on, I want to compel Joth. So Joth, I want to compel You'll Never Make Me Invisible. As we'll say Hessan, as Hassan's character Bloz, as Bloz is walking around your hideout, you're upset about Tilly spoiling your batch of whatever explosives you were growing. Bloz, they find your journal, and in your journal you're kind of talking you actually are being vulnerable in your journal. And Bloz finds out some kind of vulnerability about Joth. Now, I don't mean vulnerability as in attack me in the kidneys. I mean vulnerability as in Joth is very much about being a prankster and being in charge, but there's some vulnerability that Bloz learns from reading your journal.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the compel, is that like they're going to get to know you a little bit better, like a little bit more of the true you, and maybe like some of your problem. So would you like that compel?
I would.
All right. Get yourself a fate point and tell us what vulnerable thing Bloz finds in the journal. And then Bloz, it's up to you what you do with that.
I think it should be like, it turns out that like Joth has been looking for his mother for a while, and just that never has seemed to go anywhere. And yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with.
So you're missing your mother. You haven't been able to find her. You don't know what happened to her. It provides us as the audience an understanding of why Joth misbehaves the way that they do. And Bloz, you discover this fact about Joth, and you can choose to do something with it or not. That's entirely up to you.
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything with that right now. I think in some ways, though, just to kind of look a bit deeper into Bloz's own little psychology here, I think this also helps them kind of connect a bit more with Joth, just because of the family expectations that are kind of that Bloz feels like is being put onto them, and just the nature of having those sorts of issues in the family, I think would definitely make them identify a little bit more.
Touching.
And then as soon as I'm done looking at that, I'm going to realize, oh, wait, it's over there. And I'm going to beeline for the journal that I still have not got a chance to look at yet.
All right. So tell me, how do you handle the journal?
Very, very reverential and carefully. Seeing as that I've already been bit once by this, literally.
Yes. All right. Yeah, you flip through the journal, and it it has all the information that I stated previously. It's got information about his life. It's got stuff that is ciphered about his life. It has some spells listed in there that you have no idea how to decipher, at least not without effort. And the last section of the journal is his explorations of trying to find a wish, so that he can restore the memory of his beloved wife. There is, like I said, the stars and planets aligning in the right way dictates today. And there is a ciphered section about the location. He has drawn little map segments next to it. But those map segments don't, without context, you have no idea where it is. Like the Crescent Valley moon, the crescent shaped valley, you don't know unless you have context. For as much as I want to inspire this on Goonies, apparently Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade has snuck in a lot.
I'm never going to admit that I'm actually doing this, but Tilly, you'll probably notice that as I'm reading it, I'm just kind of bouncing there, looking at it, whistling Secret Agent Man to myself, very badly, as I'm just kind of flipping through this.
What do you see, Crumble fan? Any recognize anything here? Any
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Would I necessarily recognize something that some of the others might not, just since I am a self-appointed apprentice of the MageGyver? Is there some sort of location from the stories or something that I might recognize, in that map or
You know what that sounds? I tell you, so it's not necessarily going to be related to the location of the wish, but there will be something special that you notice. And Dylan, since you brought up the question, I'll let you provide the fact that's in the journal that that Crumble fan finds out.
Oh boy!
No pressure.
Okay, so he's finding something in the journal. Can I?
A new fact about Crumblebatch, maybe, or Crumbletorch, maybe.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm completely drawing a blank.
Oh, that's okay. If you want, I can put it to the rest of the group. That's okay. It can be hard to come up with stuff on the spot. I understand that.
I'm coming up with stuff, but I don't think it's the stuff that he would notice. So where my head immediately went was the paper trail of money, whatever stuff like that. But I think that's probably not what he'd be looking for, or sorry, what they'd be looking for.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's fair. Well then, I tell you what, other Dylan, Maggie, any ideas of what Bloz would find?
So I'm thinking about this connection between Crumbletorch and these star maps. As Crumbletorch being a scholar of some sort, thusly.
Yeah.
So what? Dylan, help me out here.
I'm thinking like it sounds like the best thing we could do is some sort of map to something he found that Crumbletorch found.
You know what? Actually, putting those two things together, the star map stuff plus a map of what might be found, I think that there's probably a celestial event that is being predicted in this. So either like an eclipse or maybe a comet or something of that sort that maybe he's identified as being about to happen.
A falling star. That's where he gets the wish from.
Oh, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. All right. So Bloz, you realize that the location is going to be dependent on paying attention to the sky and using information in the encoded section that you're going to have to figure out to find the falling star to get the wish.
I like that, but I think the some of the MageGyver stuff is leaking into Bloz's brain and is making them think that maybe instead of it being a falling star, it's like one of those stellar ships from Planescape.
One of those stellar ships.
Yeah. You know how the you know how you have the there's it's ships that travel in the astral plane and
Spelljammers.
Spelljammers. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Yes, sorry, I was pulling for the wrong thing. So I'm thinking that's it's probably a shooting star, but my theory is that that I think that's just what Bloz is thinking. It's like, oh, a ship's gonna come and it's gonna provide the wish or something.
I want to just lock something in place here. We have said fallen, we've said falling, we've said shooting, and I think that it being an ing rather than en, so either falling but not fallen, or shooting but not shot. I'd really love to keep the ing in there because I think that leads us to some fun potential later.
All right. So you know that there is going to be something that's falling, shooting, arriving, that will be used to help find the location. And at this point, what do you all want to do? I mean, it seems obvious that deciphering the ciphered section seems like the most obvious thing, but maybe you don't want to do that. I don't know.
Does this call for a trip to the library?
The library.
So you did say we were a bunch of nerds at the beginning, at the offset.
I 100% did. I 100% did. All right. So, let's see. So yes, the library. So you managed to the library that happens to be like nearby, one of many libraries within the city. It's pretty run of the mill, but it is an old converted temple. So the building itself, while like the insides are pretty much kind of like a library, it is actually a pretty nice building because it was formerly a temple. Wait a minute, 15 minutes left?
Isn't that right?
Oh, we're not doing good on time. I thought 5 o'clock. I am really missing out.
I want to make sure I wasn't lying to my wife. So
yes. Well, then let's take one moment. Does everyone have an extra hour? If you do not, that's fine. I made a mistake.
I'm going to be that person and say, I actually have a lot of classwork to do today.
That's fine. That's
fine. Sorry.
That's okay. We can tackle it. It'll be perfectly fine. All right. So you make it to the library and you are finding well, I don't want to tell you what you're doing. You make it to the library. What are you going to do at the library?
I think that Bloz is going to go straight for the section that primarily talks about, yes, stellar events, but also like extra planar stuff, because that's what that's what Bloz's head is in right now.
So I'm kind of going along, but I'm also like, I sneak another book under my under all of it, which is listing full of like trickery magic, and it's like, fun pranks for all ages, basically. And I wanted to bring in, and I want to just float this with everyone. I want to bring Smudgeon into the scene. Whether or not, just because, like, I think maybe at the end of it, he shows up, or they show up, and just kind of like, I imagine they're like covered in dirt and something like that, because they've been pursuing us the whole time, but just to add a little bit of tension into the scene.
I know. I tell you what, this is what I want to do. Okay, so Joth, you're off. Everybody is off by themselves in the stacks of the library, like doing their like individual research. Joth, you kind of like, you've got that trickery book, and you kind of come around the corner, and there's Smidgen. In like, what fantasy race is Smidgen? The principal, is he human? Is he something else?
I'm thinking like I actually think Smudgeon should be dark elf, like me.
All
oh
right.
God, like secret reveal is that Smudgeon is actually my dad.
You know what? I think that's a compel.
Oh.
I think that's a straight up compel. Smudgeon is your dad. I think that's a great twist.
Actually, yeah.
All right. Well, I offer you that fate point, and it sounds like you accept.
All right.
All right. And basically he is going to be, he's like, you are in trouble, young man. We are going home immediately. And we'll cut to the other three. The other three of you have all like gotten your books and gathered together. You're at like one of those tables, and kind of like have your books out and everything. When the last of the three of you arrives at the table, and you're about to begin to do your research, you hear a familiar voice yell, "Hey, butt wipes!" And you turn and you see the bully and his two like minion thug buddies just standing there, and he's shaking his fist at you. And that is where we'll end it for today.
Oh, I love this.
All right.
The chase never ends.
No.